All right. We are live now. I'm here with Tom Byars, my good buddy. What's up, Tommy?
Hey, how's it going today?
Hey, man. This is our first video podcast for the Lights Camera Pro podcast. I'm your host, Sean Ventura. And Tommy's here. We're going to talk to him about his career in music and television. He is an artist. So, welcome, Tom.
Hey, good to see you. Happy Friday.
Hey, man, let the people see behind you there. Let them see that guitar. What is that guitar and setup? You said you're in the music room.
I'm in the music room. Yeah, this is where my band practices, although we haven't practiced in a while because of
COVID.
the social distancing factor, and it's too small
Right.
for more than one person.
Right, right. When did you know that you wanted to be an artist and do music and TV eventually? But when did you know you wanted to be an artist? Were you a kid? Were you in high school?
I like the way that you can create art with other people. Sharing that too is awesome. And I guess, I started doing these light sculptures.
What kind of sculptures?
I would create these frames and then put a canvas over it and a light behind it. And I would paint over the canvas and it would sort of light up like a painting that was alive.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So,
Yes.
when do you start playing music? When do you start messing around with video cameras? Is that high school or are you still doing
Actually, we were
art?
lucky enough to actually have a video studio at our high school. And my teacher, Dangerfield Ashton, showed me how to work a camera and a 3/4 inch videotape machine. I was hooked from then. Although when I got out of high school, I decided I wanted to pursue audio as an audio engineer. So went to school in Chillicothe, Ohio at the recording workshop. Brother was in Los Angeles and he was like, come on out to LA. If you want to do audio, you should be out in Los Angeles. So went out there and went to school at the Audio Video Institute of Technology, and then got a job working in the studio as a night engineer. And it was really, they had a lot of great bands come through that studio that didn't necessarily work with, but got to be around a lot of the
Any
great punk
bands that you
records
can
were
tell
done
us
there.
about? Any bands you can tell us about?
Yeah, the Minutemen, most of the
Cool.
Black Flag artists from back in that day, Black Flag, and I'm sorry, SST was the label, but Black Flag recorded there, and the Minutemen,
Okay, so
and
hold on. Black Flag is Henry Rollins, correct? The poet?
it was, I believe, he was, yes, yes,
He's the lead singer because I
yes,
was obsessed with them in college. And I remember I went to a Black Flag Gangrene concert in Boston
yes,
when I was at Emerson. And somebody was stage diving and they kicked me in the head with a
yeah.
combat boot. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing here? But it was great music, man. I love their music.
Yeah, the music's great. But yeah, there was so much great music in Los Angeles back then. And I worked at some interesting studios, got to record, any different people, from a lot of people you've never heard of to got to record Megadeth and Jan and Dean. Got to work with as a recording producer. I met a guy who was actually from South Carolina, Georgia originally, Bruce
Hmm.
Joyner, and I started producing his records. And we had a couple of people come in, like John, what was his name? Ray Manzarek came in, and
The
John Doe.
keyboardist for the Doors, right?
Yeah, he was he played keyboards for the Doors, and he came in. And I remember, like, came in the studio, the session I was producing, and there was a tack piano in there, and he started playing this Doors songs on the tack piano. It just was like, oh man, this is so cool.
So cool.
It's like you meet, when you do meet your idols, I guess you think, well, I hope they're nice. And I've been lucky. I mean, Ray was one of the nicest guys I ever met. And, different people. I haven't really met someone that I didn't like yet. So,
Cool. Cool. So you're in the recording studio there. Where do you go from there, Tom?
well, and I was out in Los Angeles for most of the 80s. And then 89, I had a band and we were playing around and was trying to figure out a way to get back home, So I was like, let's set up a tour. So we toured across country, got to play with a lot of different people going across country. We played in Phoenix, we played in Austin, New Orleans, crazy, crazy. I mean, we played in New Orleans, we played at 2 o'clock in the morning at a interesting, crazy bar. And then we played in Austin. We actually got to open up for the Lemonheads, and that was really cool. And
Awesome.
just going through, we got to go play CBGBs in New York during that
Wait,
same
wait,
tour.
what you got to talk about that for a second. What was that like? Because I went to CBGB's once and they had painted it like 50 times.
Loud with smell, but it was still it was
So
great playing there. I think we were sort of the tail end of that in '89, so it wasn't as much punk bands as they were heavy metal bands, and their bands sounded like Pablo Cruz in there. So, but
so were you touring with Bruce Joyner and that band, or was this a different band?
this was my band. This is actually Out of the Fire, which is the band that I started,
Okay.
and I did some touring around with Bruce too. So none of it's been, it's all been when you go on the road and you don't have a lot of money, you're not sort of unknown. It's you still all sleep in the same room, so it's not as not as fun as it could be maybe if you had a bunch of money, but we still had a great time and shared a lot of great memories with bandmates.
Yeah, I just interviewed this woman, Katie Snyder, who's a photographer and a life coach and a podcaster. And she gave her business up for 2 years to some friends and traveled with her husband, who's in a band. And for 2 years, they just traveled in a van with the band, and she was like the manager. And she said it was amazing. It was an
Yes,
incredible life experience. So, were you playing? I know you play bass now. Were you playing bass then, or were you playing
I
some
play
other?
guitar,
Okay.
songwriter, guitarist, arranger, recording engineer, producer, whatever. But during that tour, I think the my favorite shows we played in Erie, Pennsylvania, and it was Friday the 13th of October, and it's a full moon, and it was
Mm-hmm.
just one of those magical nights. We were, because we're playing punk, people didn't always dig the music, but that night we played. There was a band opening up, and they were the local sort of cover band doing the '60s and '70s hits, and we were like, oh, they're going to hate us, and we played, and they loved us, and we went to this Victorian mansion after the show and stayed up all night and met all these new, interesting, fun people. And that was just like kind of magic that happens on tour. And
Yeah.
it's
And how would you
always,
describe the music? Would you say it was like punk or
punk is such a term that a lot of people use for pretty much different types of music, but we
hmm.
weren't like hardcore punk. We were more like post pop punk,
Okay.
in that respect.
Very cool. So you're touring, and then what happens after that? Do you go to ESPN, or are you doing other stuff first?
Well, we got we toured across country, and I got back to South Carolina, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to go back to LA. So I just was like, I'm done. So we played some shows around, and then my girlfriend at the time was playing bass, and I'm like, hey, I'm staying here, and she ended up sticking around for a while, and then she moved back, and the other guys moved back, but I decided to stay because I was tired of the LA grind. But then I was going to school taking electronic engineering, and I saw an ad at the TV station for a master control operator. And I'm like, oh, I think I'll try that. And that was my first job, overnight master control, doing the 10 hours of the Golden Girls in a row or something like that. And did that, got to work in the tape room. And then they were doing layoffs, and they were like, yeah, we're going to, have to get rid of some people. So, I've got an opening in the newsroom doing the prompter. So I was like, I'll do prompter. And then I got into prompter, doing a prompter. Then I
Right.
did camera, and then audio and switching. And then, I wanted to get into writing. So there was a community service person there that wanted someone to produce PSAs. So that's how I started writing, was doing PSAs for her. And that was a great learning experience too, getting to use the camera and write and produce and, put music. Then, my, the band I was playing in, we had just worked with Peter Buck of REM. He produced a record, so the local Spartanburg paper had us on the front cover. And then my boss came to me and goes, I play guitar too. I'm from Athens, and I love music, and I'm like, let's do something cool like a video show. So I got to produce my own 30-minute rock and roll video show called Turn It Up, and got to work with a bunch of fun bands that came through. We recorded Hootie and the Blowfish and a bunch of other bands of that caliber during that time. And of course, I put my band on there too. And that was fun. We did that for almost a year, and I got to interview. The highlight, I guess, of that whole thing was getting to interview Ray and Dave from the Kinks, and I still have that video. That was
Oh,
so
cool. So where
yeah.
did it play? Where did it broadcast?
And Channel 7, which was I think top 30 market, because it was Spartanburg, Asheville, and Greenville. So it was a pretty good sized market, and they had a really nice studio. And it was, I mean, such a great learning experience working there, because I learned so much. And then after being there for like 4 years working in local TV, I was sort of ready to move on. And my brother's like, oh, the guy we grew up with, Dan Young, is working for ESPN now, and he's doing a Braves game in Atlanta if you want to come up. So I'm like, okay, sure. So he got us backstage passes, and that was at the old stadium before it had the fire. So basically, I had a press pass. So I went and sat, in behind the home plate, and that was so much fun. And then I talked to Dan, and he's like, you should come up to ESPN and work up there. So I'm like, okay. So I set up an interview and then worked up there for just over 3 years. And that was a great learning experience too, because they had state of the art equipment, and everybody
Wait, this
there
was
was,
at the Braves? Sorry.
no, he was actually doing it, ESPN show doing the Braves. So he was,
Oh, okay. I
yeah.
thought you
So he
you were
wanted,
in
he
it.
was, he was working for ESPN. He said, come up, hey, come up to Connecticut and, work for ESPN. I'm like, okay, sure. So I was up there for 3 years, and, in Bristol, we lived in New Britain, and then
What was that
moved
like?
back.
What was it like? Okay, give me a time. You're in ESPN in the 80s and the 90s, and what is it like there? Because it's kind of new, right? It's not that old.
I think it'd been around. I started, actually, that was I guess like early '90s when I was there. So
Okay.
when I started there, they'd been around. It was the first day. My very first day was the very first day of ESPN2, and they had a big party there, and it was the very first day. And MC Hammer was playing the party. So I mean, my very first day was like MC Hammer's hosting this big party there. So,
Right.
and then I
Hey,
did work with the first thing was the ESPN show that had Keith Oberman and Susie. What's her name? I cannot remember
Susie
her last name.
Orman. Susie Orman.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
So they both, and downtown Julie Brown was on the show too, and it was a
I
4 hour
remember
show.
that show. What was
Yeah,
that called?
I can't remember what it was called. Like I can't remember, ESPN2 tonight or something, but it was a 4 hour show, so we had to stand on our feet for almost 5 hours. So that was a
And
big
what were
grueling.
you doing, Tom, on the show? What were you
I was a
doing?
camera operator,
Okay.
and
And then after that, were you running the board or anything? Or didn't you say
I
you
did
ran the switcher or something?
mainly did camera and editing at ESPN.
Okay. Cool. Then after ESPN, where do you go? Because I know you want to make this a little quick, so we'll fly through it.
Moved back south and end up at Turner Studios, and
Really? You weren't in between ESPN and Turner? There was nothing? Weren't you
there
at
was
CNN
some
or something?
time where I was working as a freelancer and playing music. And I did, like, yes, when I did move back to Charlotte, I moved with ESPN. They opened up a post house, creative post and transfer, and I worked there as assistant
Whoa,
editor
whoa,
with,
wait a minute. I was just talking to John Dilling 2 days, I guess. Well, I actually just finished his podcast and he worked there. Were you
yes,
there
he
with
worked
John
there too.
Dilling?
Yes, no, I did work. He was before me. He
Okay.
worked there before me,
Okay.
and I was there because he was there. I think ESPN bought it, and then slowly it became a sports facility versus being like for production for commercials. and I was sort of the start of that. And I was working, I think, 7 days a week doing sports and doing, working on the weekends doing college football. And then they asked me if I wanted to work as a freelancer and get paid twice as much. So I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do freelance. So I was the chief editor of the NASCAR Today show on ESPN2 for,
And that
I
was
think it
in
was
Charlotte?
3 years. This was in Charlotte. Yeah. And then from
Oh,
there, I moved to Turner. Yes.
okay, cool. So, tell us about Turner, but you can also tell us about the Bruce Joyner experience. I know I went over your house and saw you guys were building a studio and Bruce was there. If you want to talk about that a little bit, or if you want to talk
Yes. We
about,
built a studio and we recorded, I think we did 4 albums there. And
okay.
we had some success in Europe with the record. And that was a lot of fun, just writing and producing and playing the music. And then Turner was awesome. There were so many creative people there, and just the way that they think outside the box is really good too. I mean, it's, like I met you and so many people, John Dilling, so many great people that, you learn different styles and different ways to look at the way you're doing editing or any video product that you're doing, producing.
We did a short film together. It was so much fun. It was called The
That was
Castle.
a lot of fun too. When
Um,
you came to me, it was a great way to be creative and work with people that were, like side minds, were wanted to do art, and that was so much fun acting. I'd never acted in anything, but you came to me and you wanted me to do it, and we had a great time.
yeah, it was so awesome. And I remember the end there where we're all dancing by the pool with the band. Do you remember that band? It was with Matt White and Lee Wiggins. And
Yes,
remember the name of that band?
I do
Mike
not remember.
Volgaris was in the band.
Yes, Mike Vulgaris and uh, Lee Wiggins, who he plays in another band, and he's great musician, and
Yeah, his
it's
band.
awesome what he does.
I just saw on Facebook they're gonna have a live streaming thing. I think on Monday. It's called Lezabu Grand or something like
Yeah,
that.
they're awesome. We've played a couple of shows with them.
Oh, you have?
That's got another Turner guy and Hutch, and he's awesome too.
Can you talk about Bruce Joyner a little bit? Did you tour with him across the country?
Recorded, wrote songs, did music, and played around Atlanta and the surrounding area. And we actually had a #1 song in France for 3 weeks, called "The World Needs a Little More Love," and that sort of helped us keep putting records out. Didn't make a lot of money from it, but we did get to enjoy a lot of creating art.
And can people find that on YouTube?
Yes, if you
I
just
mean, I'm
type
sorry,
in
on
Bruce
iTunes.
Joyner, the bands I played with him in a couple other bands, but if you just type in Bruce Joyner, you'll find a bunch of our music on there. And
And what was the
did
name of the
another
song
song
that
that I did.
went in France for 3 weeks? What was the name of the song?
Um, the World Needs a Little More Love. There's actually a French band that covered that, which is sort of cute too. And they got
Yeah.
a video. I've done some videos for some of the songs. If you look up, I know I did one for a song called Swamp Fox, and one that I really like, a song that I like is She's a Rocker. If you look up Bruce Joyner, She's a Rocker, that's a video I did also. That's been fun too, creating videos for the band. The new band I'm in is called Dysfunctionals, and you can
Yep. I
find,
almost saw you. I'm gonna come see you, but I almost saw you that one night, and
yes,
I think you went on late or something.
yes. But it was
Um,
great talking to you, man.
it was great talking to you. And so, last thing, just I know you want to go. Advice you would give to young artists, young musicians, young people who want to get into TV. What is your advice for like a long career? And obviously, you've done a ton of different things, but what advice would you give?
Well, working in the entertainment industry, the #1 advice I always give is be nice to everybody, because the guy that may be your assistant today may be your boss next year. So you have to be not. I
Yeah.
mean, just be nice
So
to
true.
everybody because it happens a lot. You know, people you're
Hmm.
working with maybe working under you, and then they're the president of the company. So, and it's just a good policy anyway to be nice and always speak of people in a nice way and be kind to people. That's
Yeah.
the my best advice, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. And anything for musicians and people who want to make it in music, just
Well, I
keep
mean,
playing.
for
Keep.
me, you know, music and art is not about making money. I know that, you know, it's you just have to play music and create art because it's something you do that fills a void. But if you're doing it to make money, I think you're in the wrong business unless you want to play in a cover band, which is sort of to me like, copying art, you're not really creating anything. So if you're that way, maybe you're in it for the money. But if you're just in it to enjoy it, you just have to do it and love what you do because you're not going to really make any money off of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. I love you,
I
man.
love the
Take care.
background. I can't really see it right now, but I love that you got the guitar and the amp back there. And
Yes.
thanks for doing this. And we will talk soon, man. We have to. We went out to see. What did we go to see? Depeche Mode night or something with
Yeah, it was
Emilio.
like
Some sort of 80s
80s,
night.
80s
Went
music
dancing and
dance
drinking.
thing.
That was
Yeah.
fun. But we'll have to
Yeah.
do that again. We'll have to all meet up.
Yes, I'd like to meet up for a beer sometimes. And
Awesome, man.
all right, take care, man.
Good to talk to you. I'll talk to you
Good talk
soon.
to you.
Thanks,
Take care.
buddy.
Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.